I am now going to take you into part 2 of the business navigation system, and that is SMART goal setting. SMART goal setting is about setting the why correctly, and I'm going to use a mathematical formula to explain that. However, it's not going to be hardcore mathematics, so don't worry about that. When I'm looking at a why in a business context, a why is a function of x1, x2, x3, and all kinds of different x's until xn. Now let me explain to you what that means and why it matters, and that is not often explained well, and it's not often really paid attention to. The why is a result. The typical results that you want in the business environment is that you make more money or you use money more wisely. So really the typical whys in any kind of business context are about more revenue, or more and better output from the money you use. And usually business leaders have that focus on the company, but very often employees in companies don't have that focus as clear because they operate in their day-to-day jobs, and that isn't necessarily focused on an output for the business. The X's at the same time are influencing factors. And it could be something that you have to react to or that you can actively influence. Let me explain this a little bit. In business situations, for example, you want to sell 1 million more in Germany of a product that you have. You would say, hey, my why is the additional sales of 1 million. And then the X's you have to react to are there any developments in the country? Is there any competition coming up? Is there any advertising? Is there any specifics in the market that you have to pay attention to? Things you cannot change, but you have to react to, so that's one. And the other one is that are things that you actively influence. So, for example, when you go sell, you could go see new clients, you could do advertising, you could go call people directly, or you could work in your own network. So those would be the influencing factors and the X's that you want to pay attention to. Now, what people often do is they confuse the Y and the X, and that's where the problem is. When a person, for example, works in sales and they're trying to call people and they're trying to get new sales in, they could all be focused about, well, I made 100 phone calls today and I've done all I could and it was really hard, but they don't ask the question, and did I really sell anything? But that's the main question that people need to ask to see, am I with my activities getting the output that I want? When you look at the business world or at business literature, you're going to find that SMART goal setting is really nothing new. But the one thing that actually is new is the human perception piece, and I'm going to now talk about that. Oftentimes, managers don't set goals because they think, oh, it's all clear, or they think, oh, it's not necessary. Employees don't pay a whole lot of attention to it because it's easier to not have any, because then you can have all kinds of reasons why you're not doing or getting where you're supposed to get. So what are we doing from a perception perspective? The question really we want to ask from a human perception perspective is, why are we setting goals to begin with? Because if goal setting is so cumbersome, why would you waste your time with it? But the answer is rather simple. You want to have clear images in the heads of people. So you want to create a clear image in the head. And the reason why that matters is that often between a manager and a direct report, there is a different image in the head on what the outcome is, on timeliness, on amounts, on what it can cost. And there is even more difference in the images when it comes to the X's on what are the things I can actually do or I have to do to achieve my goal. Very important in goal setting is, though, that at the beginning, when we set SMART goals, we really only talk about the why. We don't talk about the X's yet. And the reason for that is this. If you have a specific outcome you want, a specific result you want, it's important to write that down and have that clearly stated in numbers. Now, there might be different ways of getting there throughout the year, and you don't want to nail your people to, it's exactly that what you have to do in September when you set your goals in December or January. But it's really important to be very clear that at the beginning, you have a SMART goal on the why. The business literature is full of the terminology SMART, and when you look it up, you'll probably find something like specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-bound. And there's sometimes for the A and R use different words, but it doesn't really matter a whole lot. I'm using those that I found relevant in the business context I'm in. Now, in the business navigation system, I am calling part 2 the address SMART goals. When you drive in a car and you're driving somewhere new, you would never go and say, oh, let's drive to Hamburg and let's see where we go and when we're in Hamburg. You would never do that. You would go out and get the address. You would get the street name and the street number to make sure you know exactly where you want to go. And it is that clarity that a navigation system needs to really get to where you want to go, and not just a rough idea where I could be going. And the system uses it that way because if you just enter Hamburg, you end up at 100 different places. And the same thing applies in the business world. When you have clarity on where you really want to get number-wise, the likelihood that you and a team you maybe work with gets to that same place at the same time is a lot higher than if you didn't. So I'm now going to walk you through where it really matters and what's important for the SMART definition. And then I'm also going to take you through the typical mistakes I see in goal setting. And that usually does translate in a time lag, in impossibility, or in even not getting to the goal at all. So part 1, specific. A specific goal has to be specific to the role of the person. Say you work in a sales department and you have 30 salespeople. It doesn't help to give out the goal of, we want to sell 10 million this year, but you really have to break it down to the individual. What is the individual himself or herself contributing to make it happen? Because if you have the big goal that says, hey, we all somehow try to make the 10 million happen, then some people might get engaged, the fast ones get engaged more, the other ones get disconnected more. So it's really important to have a goal specific to the person you're talking to. The next one, measurable. Measurable means normally it has to have numbers. The good thing with numbers is when you talk about the images in the head that a 2 is a 2 is a 2. You can't really go off a whole lot in the numbers world, like 2 hours is 2 hours and not 5 days and not maybe a bit longer, or you have to be quicker. the measurements of both time and money are really very helpful ones, and a lot of times you can use those. And when you work more in the industrial area where you fabricate something, you make something, you have a whole lot of extra measures from there as well. You could use throughput, or you could use personnel use per hour, or you could use FTEs, full-time equivalents, whatever you want, you can use there, as long as it's measurable in numbers. The next one is attainable, and that one completely draws on the knowledge from the perception class. And there I'm talking about the belief that it can happen. When you set goals and the person you're setting the goal with has a belief in their heart that says it can't be done, they will for sure execute that it can't be done. And there is not much you're going to do about that. So when you talk to people and you set goals with them, you have to really clarify, hey, can you believe this is possible? And if you look at the person and the person goes, whoa, I have no idea, then you have to make sure that you depict a way with that person, you find the right images, that you maybe create a new path for that person to get to that goal. Otherwise, they're creating impossibility. I have never heard that trained that way, and it is so important because we are emotional beings and we are not going to places we don't think we can go. That's not how we work. Relevant, on that one, it is important that the individual understands the relevance and how what they do relates to the why. So relevant for the why. Sometimes the more granular you break down goals to people, the less easy it is to relate it. Okay, so this task, maybe in a legal department, if you do it this and that way, it's going to impact the big number that way. But you still have to allow that bridge and understand that bridge for the person, how what they do relates in the end to the big whys of the company, because people have more fun when they see how what they do contributes to a bigger whole. So it's important that they understand the relevance of what they do. The last one is time bound. That's rather simple. You usually have it with a date. And when you are in like a shorter term measurement, you want to be in the hour as well. So time. So this is how it should be done. And now I'm going to be talking to you about how it often is done and why then people fail on their numbers and they fail to deliver the results that the companies want.